All right, so this is my round one from the 2021 U.S. Masters. So I'm playing this kid Kevin Su, or Kevin Su. And you always want to start off with a win. And I started with white for the first time in a while, so I was feeling pretty good. And you always got to pass the test of the Asian or the little kids. First couple of rounds, you always play some little kids. And if you beat them, then you get the big guys, and then tournament goes good. Never want to get stuck and lose like the first round, have to like claw your way out. That stuff is always really tough. All right, so we got a Con Sicilian. I was going to try something new. I've been playing knight b3, and he actually called me out later on, and he was like, dude, this guy's Con Sicilian is so bad. He plays this knight b3 stuff. So I tried knight takes c6 for the first time, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to just try opening whatever I wanted to play. I was like, I'm going to try it and stick to it. So I said I was going to take on c6, so I took on c6 and get this position. And I actually did prep this a little bit before the game, and I came up with this line, take on d5. So if they go c takes, there's some cool lines with like knight b5, where the only move is queen b8, otherwise bishop f4 is just GG. I think queen b8, queen f3, and this is kind of that variation here, and he has to go bishop d6. I get the bishop pair, and that was my idea. I also knew he could play e takes, and this position actually comes out of this e4, e5, I think 4 knights opening. Where they take on c6, and you get these two pawns, the hanging pawns. And white actually gets some good attacking stuff, but it is a bit dry, and I think black equalizes. The simple way to play is just h3, which is definitely what I should have done and gone for this. But I decided to try to be fancy, and then try to get like squeak out an advantage out of this guy. So queen f3, bishop g4, rook e1 check, bishop e7, and I come up with this idea, bishop f4. And my idea is this endgame looks pretty juicy for white, because he's got to move the bishop, let's say here, and now I can basically force him into like just a slightly inferior position. And against kids, endgames are always kind of advantageous, because I think to be good at the endgame, it takes a lot of experience, and kids obviously don't have as much experience. So if you are playing a little kid, generally endgames are the way to go, because their calculations are really good. So the problem with this move is I miss he can go queen d7, and after queen g3, he has knight h5. And the problem is I'm losing this bishop, and this queen is protecting this bishop, so I gotta move away. Actually, if I go queen e3, what happens? Oh, d4. Yeah, d4. That's why I couldn't go queen e3. So here I was already like, oh my god. And actually, a computer gets it says equal, because I can go take, and then now I can go queen g3. The difference is he can't castle, because I have bishop d6. And he can't go knight h4 because I take here. I mean, I am quote-unquote down in exchange, so it's still not like a super nice position, but at least I have some compensation. So the problem was, after this, I'd do the same idea, but after king takes, rook e1 check, if he goes king f8, I'm actually in some trouble. Because king f8, bishop d6 check, which still looks good. The problem is my queen is stuck protecting this bishop, and if I trade queens here, it's almost over. This is going to be really hard to hold down in exchange. My only compensation for this being down in exchange is his king is on g8, this rook is out of play, and he can't castle. But if I go like queen e5 and he goes knight f6, I'm going to have to force to trade queens, or at least like some pieces off, which would be very bad for me. Fortunately, he goes king d8, and this is when I knew God was with me in this tournament. Just everything, all these little things kind of worked out, where it could have been a lot worse or a lot more dangerous. So here I go bishop c7 check, and he almost played king c8. So king c8 would have been hilarious, because bishop a6 is mate. So he goes from king f8 is winning to this to losing in 2 moves. No, it wasn't this bad. He did go queen takes, and here I played queen takes g4. And now this is when I actually really think I have some compensation, because his king on d8 is never really going to be safe. His knight is loose. My pieces are coordinated, and these pawns are starting to get a little bit kind of sus. So g6, and I go knight takes d5. I mean, this is just like it looks so cool. I was going to play it. But I missed that there was this idea of just queen h4 check, and then I can trap the knight. Now the knight can't move because I take on f6 with check. And if he goes queen f4, and this is why I didn't go for this variation, I can just go knight e2 and chill. And after knight e2, I think I'm just winning this piece. Because queen b4, I go c3. Queen has to remove this pin, and then I can take this knight. So that would have been a cool variation, but also knight takes d5, come on. Like round 1, we just start off with some highlights. This is exactly also the comeback that you want to see. So queen d6, knight b4. Now there's a lot of places to put the knight. I wanted to keep threats. So knight b4, I have pressure on c6, and I can go queen c4 and I start targeting this. I don't want him to feel like he has time to kind of just get his pieces out, because if he does trade off like a rook or something, Now my attack is not so much. His king is weak, but I don't have enough pieces to really to do something about it. So knight b4, king c7, knight a6 check. Now either way, I think he's already kind of in trouble. King b6, the computer like really likes queen c4, I think queen a4. Here, actually, let me add the engine just so we can have an idea of where everything stands. But at this point, it's already like really good for white. He goes king b7. I go queen c4. The idea is if he goes rook e8, I can go queen takes pawn check and then pick up the rook, and obviously that's GG. So he goes rook f8 and starts playing defensive. And then here, I think I started getting a little bit low on time, and I'm like, come on, there's got to be some finish here. Look at my pieces. And kind of the cool thing that I did this game, and I kind of did this the rest of the tournament, is I played very controlled and not too fast, like not too rushed. I know I still talk really fast, but the way I played chess this tournament was definitely more in control, and you'll see that throughout the tournament. So here I just go bishop b4. He goes rook c8, I just go b4. I'm going to anchor the knight in. I can take this pawn now. I can always go b5 if I want, and that's probably going to win back the exchange. So this is just kind of like a free play position where I can kind of do anything, and he really doesn't have much counterplay. So he goes f5, and here I go queen a6 first. And now the computer doesn't like queen a6, but I like it, because if I go bishop f3, I didn't like rook e8. Computer really likes it. It honestly just wants to go take, and g3. And it's just saying my king is so safe, and like his king is so weak, and eventually I'm going to break through. But when you're attacking, you don't want to like lose pieces. So I go queen a6, forcing rook c7, and now I can go bishop f3, because now there's no rook e8 because the rook's on c7. So I'm moral victory, and after this it's kind of GG. I go rook d1. The way he wants to play is queen takes, take, and then this, and obviously this is still a lot better for me. Queen d3. He has to go like rook b8, and then I have knight a6. So I mean, still winning, but he kind of just goes rook e8. And I don't know if he missed it or not, but after rook takes and rook check, I have queen f1, and I would just be up a piece. And I mean, I'm up a piece with compensation and the pawn. So I think white's better here. Actually, plus 12 is the diagnosis of this position. So honestly, started off a little bit rocky. I missed that queen d7 move, and I really rallied after that. And I think you're gonna see throughout this tournament, it was a lot of just fighting, positional, and just like controlled chess that really got me through. And I still got a pretty nice attack. So I mean, it's not like if you play a little bit slower, you don't still get to attack and checkmate your opponent. So next we have round 2, which honestly might be my favorite round from the tournament. All right, so this is round 2 of the US Masters. I'm playing Grandmaster Alexander Shabalov. And cool, funny story. When I was a kid, when I was like maybe 1800, my dad put me in this Lake George tournament, which was all Grandmasters. I like lost every single round. But I remember in that tournament, Shabalov was playing this Grandmaster Mikhilvesky, and they had like the coolest game of all time. There was a crowd watching on ICC. Everyone was blown up about it, and I was like, man, Shabalov is like the coolest Grandmaster ever. And this is not my first time playing him. Every other time I played him, like funny enough, always with black, he just absolutely destroyed me. But this time was a little bit different. So we start out d4, and he's the kind of grandmaster who plays everything: e4, d4, f4, c4, like every opening. And I always hate it that these guys always play d4 against me instead of e4. Like e4 is a little bit more fun, a little more fighting chess. But they always try to play it slow against me, d4. All right, so I get my first Stonewall Dutch of the tournament. If they go c4, sometimes I can transpose to Nimza with bishop b4 check. But he used the move order where I have to go Stonewall. Although because if bishop b4 check, there's pawn push, and the only other option is going to either a Leningrad Dutch or like just a normal, like I guess Orthodox Dutch. But I just go Stonewall Dutch. That's what I decided before the tournament, and I was like, I'm gonna stick to it. So bishop d6, c4, c6, and b3, which is a pretty common line. The idea is they want to trade off this dark square bishop for my bishop. Basically, this is my best piece, and this is my worst piece. It's not really a bad piece, but if you can trade this for this without making any concession, then generally like white is doing really well. So I go queen e7 to prevent that. And a4 is a really common line, but I haven't seen it recently, which I don't know why. Because before, like I was seeing it all the time. So bishop b2, I just castle, and this is kind of my one strategy in chess. I kind of try to do this every game, all the time, whoever I play. It's just bring all my pieces to their king and try to checkmate them. Bring like every single piece I have to their king and checkmate them. Like really simple, but that's kind of like if you do that, generally you're gonna have a good chance of checkmating him because you have all your pieces. So I go bishop d7. I do the bishop swing first. Now I bring the knight in, and here I think it's time to like really go. So he goes knight f to e5. I think his plan is to go knight f4 here and kind of just post up with these knights on these squares. Now knight f4 is not the end of the world because I can go g5 later, but I thought it was time. The only piece that's really not doing anything is this rook on a8, but right now even rook e8 doesn't really add value to my attack. And maybe I go like this, and double the rooks on the g file. So I thought here it was the right moment to go g5. So he goes f3. I go rook d8. There's some ideas of opening up the d file with take and then take on e5 and move something out of the way. He just sidestep at queen c2. And here I go bishop g6, trying to go into put him in this line of fire. Eventually, f4 is the real big idea. So in this Stonewall Dutch structure, and even in the Dutch structure, you always want to go f4 and try to open up their position. So I go bishop g6, and he goes rook to e1. And now here I'm always okay with knight takes bishop, because remember, this is my worst piece. So if I trade it for anything, it's kind of a good idea. Though maybe he can open up a little bit. I would still definitely take trading this bishop for this knight. And I go queen g7, he goes queen c1, attacking g5. And here's when I thought it was really the right time to go for the attack. Now another variation is h6. And then just try to slow play it a little bit with like move my bishop out of the way, move my king out of the way, go rook g8, and then try to blow him up. But I didn't want to lock it up. And I was definitely a little bit paranoid about e4. Now computer doesn't really, let me put the computer on again. Computer doesn't mind e4 so much. It actually kind of likes it for black. But my king's kind of weak. He's got the more solid structure, and the bishop starts getting the game. So I was paranoid about e4 as well. So I decided now is the time. And now computer is not a big fan, but +1 in the Stonewall Dutch is about equal because the computer just hates the Stonewall Dutch. Okay, so we take. Now I take here, and I come up with this cool idea: queen h6. Now he can't take because I take on h2, and that's just GG. And I'm gonna wait for the right time to kind of take this pawn. So he goes e3. And now I take, because now this he's gonna get double pawns, and his queen doesn't really face off with my queen. And here I was really adverse to trading queens, but I think at some point it wasn't the worst thing in the world. So take on f4, and so I want to go knight h5, but I was really paranoid about f5. And like I said, I didn't want to trade queens here. And knight f4 is interesting, but this is like, okay, what's going on? There's so much stuff. It's crazy. It's just a typical Shabalov game. And I wanted to play a little bit more controlled, and I saw this idea, knight e8, and now my knight's going to come to g7, f5, post up here, and keep this pawn weak, and it has so many squares to go through after that. And specifically, I think his dark squares are weak, not to mention, I'm also attacking the d4 pawn. So this maneuver looks really cool. So knight e8, he goes rook f2, I go knight g7, bishop f1, and then here I thought it was time. And I think the reason why is I was getting a little bit paranoid about rook g2, and him like getting some counterattack. Now knight f5, I think it really is the right move. I think another reason was I thought knight e5 here. Now this pawn is not so easy to kind of take advantage of. But this, like, slow playing it a little bit more would have been the way to go. But here I go bishop takes, knight takes, rook takes. And the cool part about this game is right now it's me against the bishop pairs. Not the bishop pairs, the bishop pair. It's a pure bishop pair advantage. 2 bishops versus 2 knights, not knight and bishop. So here he's like, it's not okay. So it's not a real bishop pair because these bishops are all blocked, right? So this is looking at this. Maybe this could do something, but even then, I'm not really worried about it. So don't fall too in love with the bishop pair. Like obviously, it's still something that really wants to like guide your chess, but there are exceptions to it, and you're probably gonna see a little bit of it this game. So I go knight f6. So his idea is to go bishop d6, force the trade, or even bishop e7 and stuff like that. So I go knight f6 to guard the guard this square, and if he goes bishop e7, I just move my rook, and I would actually be really happy with this, because I think when it comes down to knight versus bishop, especially if this bishop's not good, this knight can hit everything, and all his weak squares are dark squares, and he doesn't have a dark square bishop. So if he traded there, I would have been super happy. So he goes rook g2, and I go king f7. Now I was really debating between king h8 and king f7, but I was okay. The king f7 holds this pawn. It's still pretty safe here. And king h8, I always have to worry about either back rank or some bishop on e5. I mean, king h8 I think does end up being the better move, but I went with king f7, queen e3, rook h4, and here I was like, all right, this is getting crazy. I'm down to trade. And if he goes queen e5, I was gonna go queen f4. And it's funny because after the game, I asked him, and I was like, why didn't you want to go to the end game? And he was like, well, I thought your king was weaker than mine. And I think that's hilarious because my king is weak and his king is definitely kind of weak too. But in Shabalov's head, he's like, nah, I'm not weak. Your king is weak. Look at this guy. And I was kind of happy too because I thought his king was weak. So it was a win-win for everyone. We all wanted to keep the attack and the tension and the fun. So I was down with it too, for sure. So he takes, and here, like E takes, I got to worry about this. C takes, I got to worry about the C file. So knight takes, I think, makes a lot of sense because I'm also bringing the knight in. And as you see, there's a lot of these squares, these outposts are kind of opening up, not to mention the d4 pawn. So he goes bishop c1, and I go knight f4. Once again, I'm also very down to trade off a knight for a bishop because I think it's a lot easier for me to pick apart his position with my knight than for him with his bishop. So he goes rook g4, I have rook g8, and here, once again, in classic Shabalov manner, he doesn't want to trade off and go into simple position. He decides to keep it complicated with h3. But h3, I was like, yo, I just take. It's lit. I'm winning. So rook takes. Now, if he goes bishop takes, I just go take. Wherever he goes, take. And you think he can take here because now he threatens bishop takes queen and like take the knight and stuff. But I thought I just had like queen h3 check. And then, yeah, whatever he does, I'm just going to take here. And then I don't even think he can take this because he's going to end up losing the bishop or something. And this would just be easily winning, obviously. But I missed bishop g2, and at this point he has like maybe a minute or 2 minutes or 30 seconds. Like he's really low on time, and I'm starting to catch up. I have maybe 5-10 minutes, maybe probably around 5 minutes because I'm starting to get a little bit low on time in too. And like funny thing to note, it was like my time management was really good this tournament. I was never really low on time. It was always my opponents, no matter what rating they were more down on time than me, and I kept a pretty good pace. Just this little sidebar right there. So bishop g2, and fortunately I have the same idea. I just got to check the calculations. But check, I take, and if he takes here, or when he takes here, I just take this. And no matter what he does, I can always bail out and take the bishop. So if he takes here, I take this. If he moves, I just move this. So he wants to, once again, he doesn't want to lose the bishop here. So he goes bishop f4, I go knight here. The problem is I threaten kind of knight check, as well as knight takes pawn. So he goes bishop e5, knight d7. And this is great because this is when I get to take off a bishop. I don't think he can't go rook takes where the pawn goes, so he has to go pawn takes. I go knight h4, and this simp bishop has to go back. Yes, I said simp bishop. This bishop literally is like half a bishop. So if he goes here, I get this pawn, and then this pawn's gonna fall because it's on a dark square. If he goes, and then he has to go here, just back home. And here I go rook d8, and my idea is rook d2. He can't go rook e2 because I can go check. Yeah, like rook e2, I think it was like check, and he has to block, and then I just take, and go knight g6, and I win another pawn. Be up 2 pawns in the endgame, so this would be GG. But actually after here, he's thinking, and I noticed that he ran out of time. We're playing 30-second increment, no second time control, and he ran out of time. So I'm like, yo, you ran out of time. And then he was like, oh wait, you're right, there's no, I guess he wasn't like you're right, but he's like, there's no second time control. So this tournament was game 140, 30-second increment with no second time control. Normally it's game 90, 30-second increment with 30 minutes after. So after the 40th move, you get another 30 minutes. And fortunately, this was around the 40th move too. So he probably thought he was getting extra time. Like I said, I think here it's already lost. He's going to lose the second pawn. My rook is way better than his. My pieces are way better than his, and it's just a matter of time. And I do really believe I could convert this endgame. So, one on time, but still, beautiful game, awesome game, very back and forth, very fighting game. Where like this is what we wish the World Championship was, when two guys really go at it. They don't want to draw. They're not okay with just drawing. They really want to prove a point. So, one of my favorite games from the tournament. And let's go on to round 3. Alright, so now I'm playing round 3 against Grandmaster Aram Hakobyan. His rating is 2600 plus, and he's Armenian. And you don't mess with 2600s. Like, 2600s are very, very good. They made it through the fire. It's really hard to beat them. And I mean, I was excited for the game, but I was also like, I gotta play this guy. Because right now, I just want to norm. I'll take all the challenges after I norm. And with 2 out of 2, I mean, playing this guy is actually good because my average rating will be very high. But you can't lose when you want to norm. And not losing to 2600 is not the easiest thing in the world. All right. So, funny thing here is normally I go Scotch Gambit with d4. But against like a really strong player, I know he's gonna know all the theory. And the Scotch Gambit is a little cracked, where like if black knows exactly what to do, it is gonna be very hard for white to win, and not just to win, but to draw. Like black can be better in a lot of variations. So against lower rateds, I will whip out the Scotch Gambit more, but against these 2600 guys, I was like, all right, let me just play solid, normal chess. And I also, just like the other openings, I was like, all right, this tournament, I'm going to go straight Italian, and just take my time. And that's what I decided before, and I decided to stick to it. So once again, stick to what you decide you're going to do. It will pay off, I think. So I just go with a normal setup. I'm trying to like get him to castle king side so I can castle queen side, and we have a fun time. But he knows the kind of stuff that I'm looking for. So we just kind of take it slow. Okay, and once they take on e3, I like to castle king side and switch my plan because I have this open f file. And you can get a lot of tactics with that, knight h4, knight f5. So here I was like, all right, if he's going to take it, then let me go ahead and castle king side. So he tries to grab the bishop there. And once again, my only plan in chess, this is always what I try to do, bring all the pieces to your opponent's weak side or their king. So that's what I start doing here. Let me put the engine on. Okay, so we go knight h4, we go rook f3, take, and now here I was debating between queen f2 and queen g3, and the reason I went queen g3 is even if he goes knight h5, his knight doesn't really want to be there. At some point I move and he has to go back, and then I got queen f2 anyway, almost for free, right? And if he doesn't, now I get rook f1 with tempo, because now I'm threatening rook takes f6, and once I get the faster you can start making making threats, the faster your attack is generally going to like proceed and do well. Because if you take too much time, his attack is going to be a little bit faster, and now you're going to have stuff to worry about. So attack them first. That way they don't have time to attack you. It's like that one saying, offense is the best defense, because they don't have time to play offense if they're playing defense. All right, so b4, knight e2, which honestly I was happy with because I want to bring more pieces over there. Rook f1, knight f5, and take. And now here, there's two ways to take. Rook takes. I mean, I really wanted to do it, and I think that was my original plan. I mean, I'm not really worried about these double pawns, though I actually kind of should be. The idea I missed was d4, which is actually like a really creative idea. Because now if he takes, my knight comes in, and now this attack is actually kind of legit. Like I can move, if my knight gets to f5, it opens up a lot of threats. So this d4 move is definitely one I missed, but definitely I'm going to keep in my mind. Because it's a cool idea, and I'm going to get this position again probably. And that's how you kind of beat people and also like raise your game to the next level. If you miss something, catalog it in your brain, and next time, remember it. That way you can get advantage. And that's why I always say stick to the same openings or stick to an opening, and just the more games you play in it, the better you're going to get. But I went e-takes. And the idea is, okay, I was like, okay, if I go f6, obviously he's correct. So he's got to block it. Now if he blocks it, I can just slowly take my time, go g4, h4, g5. And it's one of those just free play positions where it's like, I'm not really worried about anything here. It's going to take him years to kind of make any real threats. And if I have enough time, he might get checkmated. And the threat of checkmate is always better. So I go queen e1 because I want to move with tempo. I go here to attack this pawn. Now he has to deal with it. And my idea is knight g3. And, okay, so here, this is when I get really excited. Because I was like, okay, if he goes queen h4, I have this plan to trap his queen. And, okay, so here, let me show you the plan first. So f6, if he goes knight takes, I just go rook takes, pawn takes, rook f5. And now I'm trapping his queen. I'm beating at 2600. I'm 3 out of 3 in the US Masters. Like, I'm almost guaranteed a norm at this point. I was really excited. But if I kind of saw through it, he definitely saw that his queen was going to get trapped. 2600s don't miss like tactics like that, right? So what he was trying to do, and it's honestly kind of smart, is right now he has nothing. I just have control. I'm going to just slowly get everything that I want. So he almost tries to provoke a weakness out of me, because now when I go f6, he goes g6, and now this pawn is weak. The only thing that he has to calculate is, does his queen get trapped? And I think at this point, I might even be up like an hour on the clock, or like 30 to 40 minutes. Like, he's been thinking a lot. And that's probably what he was spending all that time thinking about. Like, is there any way for him to trap my queen? If not, then this is worth it. I know he's going to bite on the tactic. And it kind of worked to a T. Though, what I could have done, and this would have, like, this is kind of probably the flaw in his plan, is if I really wanted to get a draw, I could just go knight f5 here. And I was so close to doing it. The idea is, obviously he can't take here because I take his queen. So he has to take my queen. I go knight e7 check, king h8, and then I go rook takes queen. Now I'm attacking c6, so he has to go rook a6. And how does he get out of this mess? This knight, this rook is held here. His king is stuck, and these pieces can't really move. Now the other thing is I can't really do anything. And what I was scared of was if I give him enough time, he's going to find a way to do find a way to win. And I don't really have any counterattack here. Like my plan would be to go like eventually g4, and then if I could, let's say he did something random like g5. If I could set this in, he's basically playing without a king the rest of the game. If he's playing without a king, then worst case, I'm gonna draw. Probably winning chances, like you can see, but I would be the one pressing in this position. But I guess I wasn't confident enough in my ability without queens. Against a 2600, like I do like endgames. I think my endgame is getting a lot better. And I can beat maybe even weak grandmasters in it. But at 2600, with this pawn on f6, I was really nervous. And I didn't trust myself enough. Now looking back now, what would I do? Tough question. But I probably would go towards the controlling way. Just knight f5. Because, I mean, after this tournament, I've seen I can really like hold my own in that. So the other problem is after this move, after this my glory days don't work, I start playing like a complete idiot. Like you just look at my next couple moves, they do nothing. I'm literally just moving around, like maybe trying to trap my queen, and instead I'll trap his queen. But the problem is all I'm doing is making my position worse and worse. And it's kind of here that I start getting low on time. I'm like, okay, this pawn is gonna go. You can push this. Like the castle is collapsing. So here's where, and I don't know why I didn't think about this before. But I'm like, all right, I got to do something. Let me try to make it crazy. So I go c4. So c4, I mean, I'm just trying to like blow up the center and trying to make something happen. So he takes, I go take this way. And this was actually really bad because, and I kind of expected him to see it, but he didn't. Because you could just push this pawn and I'm cooked. Because at some point, I'm going to have to devote all my resources to stopping this passed pawn from going. Yeah, like that. And in the meantime, my king is still weak. These pawns are still weak. Like something's going to fall. I got more than 2 weaknesses. I think this would have been the cleanest way to go. He kind of lets me a little bit back into it, at least calculating wise. So take here. And there's a lot of hanging pieces here. And I go c5. And computer vision, it looks cool because like I'm attacking this, I'm threatening this. If he takes here, I take this. Everything is holding. And that's why I think this is probably the wrong way for him to go because he still has chances to lose here. Where if he just pushed this a pawn, it was probably just like, that's a wrap. So he takes, I take. I mean, there's a bunch of things to calculate here. I think rook takes works too. I went with knight takes, queen takes pawn, and I don't know why I didn't go for this. I mean, I saw this variation, but for some reason I was really adverse to it. And I didn't even see king g8. So king g8 is actually the only move that kind of holds here. And to be honest, like we talked after the game, he didn't even see king g8. His plan was to go h takes. And I would go rook takes pawn check here, king h6. And then I would take this rook. And this is the position that we were probably going to get. And here, like I still have really good chances. I mean, objectively, like my king is weaker, but I'm up in exchange for a pawn, and his king is not the best either. If I had gone for this, there was a very good chance I drew this game. But unfortunately, I played knight h4, and here I think I'm winning. Well, in my head, I'm like, dude, I can actually do this. Like, I might actually come back. And I completely missed f5. So I did miss some moves so far in this tournament, which I'm not very happy about. Like round 1 against Kevin Suh with queen d7, and now round 3 with f5. And you'll see a couple more spots. So still some work to do. And I missed rook takes f5 too. I was really trying to make knight takes work. And at this point, I think I'm starting to get a little bit low on time because I've been having to just defend this like just weird position for a long time, and that kind of takes a lot of time to figure stuff out. So I'm getting low on time here, and I wanted to do this, but I didn't think it worked. There's like queen c2 check, and I just knew this wasn't gonna happen. Oh yeah, queen c2 check, rook f2, and then rook f6. Once I saw this, I was like, no, I'm dead. Does he have anything else? Yeah, rook f6 is the only move here. But after this, the pins are just adding up, because if he takes the queen, if I take his queen, he takes mine, and then I'm just done. I'm just gonna lose this endgame. He's got the pawns here. So I mean, I think I just make like a weird move like g4, but after this it's basically over. And this guy's really good at bullet. His tactics are super nice. I mean, I actually saw some like decent defending holding moves, But I mean, he's just too nice. And the idea is if I take here, he's got check and queen g1 is mate. So it was honestly a good game for me, because this is where I started learning, like, I can hold against these 2600s, I can beat them, like, I'm in these games. And I guess it's something I kind of already know, because it's not my first time. I have beaten a 2600 before, but I mean, it's something you just never expect. And after this game, I was like, all right, I can do this, especially with white. So now I'm 2 out of 3. We're going to round 4. But this is my first loss, and it was a bittersweet one, because I think if I played a little bit better, just a tiny bit better, I could have at least held this game. But still, good for the confidence. All right, so this is round 4. I'm playing Javakhadze. So he's a very strong international master, basically grandmaster. I think his live rating is like 2490. And I think he has the norms. I think he just needs a rating. And he's also one of my homies. So one thing I will say about playing friends is you never want to, but at the same time, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, because you can really have a conversation about it later. You guys, I can joke about it. Like after this game, I mean, honestly, one of my not great games from the tournament, we joked about it the whole tournament. So it doesn't have to be like really serious and personal, because I think if you enjoy chess, I mean, you can still be competitive, but it's still like be okay with losing, because a lot of it is like, let's talk about the game, let me understand. So I'm not like super adverse to it. I would definitely prefer not to play my friends, but I think it's okay. So obviously another d4, and I think he's d4 e4 player, and I'm just like, ugh, why is everyone playing d4 against me? Like the day before this tournament, I really prepped the French. I prepped it hard. I prepped everything. Like I knew exactly what I needed to do, but I didn't prep the Stonewall Dutch, and I kept getting it. So I mean, I'm not like too unhappy, because I did get a good win with it before, but I know he's gonna look at that game and decide what to do. And we did talk after, and he did look at my game against Shabalov, and he was like, all right, I saw this, let me do something else. So we started the same. Now you know b3, we go queen e7 to stop the bishop from coming here. I castle, queen c2, and this is where I guess it's a little bit different. This is a variation, obviously, and a pretty popular one. I think the idea is they want to go f3 e4. That's always what I have a very, very strong eye for. I'm making sure this doesn't happen, because at the right time, if white does go f3 e4, you can just get blown off the board, and that's happened to me before. So I wanted to make sure I avoided that at all costs. So I saw bishop d7. Okay, another thing with the bishop swing is the bishop swing works really well against b3, because if there's no b3, let's say for example, he just goes like, let's say like knight c3, castle, rook e1, and I go bishop d7. Queen b3 is always really annoying, because I don't want to go queen b6, and I don't want to go b6, because now my bishop's not over here, it's going to be over here, and now that makes some holes on the queen side. So one read that I always look for is if they go b3, I think the bishop swing is always a little bit more money. So knight d3, and here I think he's planning bishop to f4. And remember, the idea is to trade off the dark square bishop for my dark square bishop without making a concession. So one more thing I want to show you guys is if they go bishop f4 here, I'm happy to take, because now he has double pawns and his king's kind of weak. So he does trade off the dark square bishop, which I don't want, but he's made double pawns and opened up his king. So if you can get something for what they're trying to do, then it's not as bad. I mean, you have to weigh the pros and cons, but it's a way easier decision than just giving it up like this. And the other problem with bishop f4 here is a common idea with bishop f4, trying to trade off like this, is you can just go bishop e7 and then try to prepare g5. But with b3, he's forced me to go queen e7, and now I stop bishop a3, but now my bishop can't retreat to e7 if he goes bishop f4. So these are all things I'm thinking about, and honestly, like I keep preaching this, as you play an opening more and more, you're going to learn the little nuances of it, and you're going to be able to put together a cleaner and a better game, because now you really know what they're trying to do. And all these things I didn't know about like a year ago when I played the Stonewall Dutch. And this is why I'm kind of happy, or actually I'm very happy that I stuck to my openings and my like intuition and my calls this tournament. And I mean, it kind of paid off. So knight h5, I'm trying to stop knight f4. I'm trying to stop bishop f4, and I'm trying to work f4. Like if you saw round 2 against Shabalov, I remember f4 was really strong. So knight d2, and I go bishop e8, knight f3, and here's when he starts coming with knight e5 and knight f4, and I was like, all right, now's the time. Let me go f4. I mean, I think knight d7 would have been okay. Let me put the engine on again and see. I mean, once again, I think the engine, very, very big hater on the Stonewall Dutch. But I think knight d7 was the way to go, especially if a4 is the next move. I'm not worried about that at all. And then f4 or g5 is always better because I have more pieces in. But I decided to go f4 now, and this is a little bit of wind tilt, as Eugene would call it, where I'm just, it worked last time, I don't even care, I know it's going to work again because I'm just the best in the world. And it's just the stupidest thing to do. Knight e5, and here I'm just like, yeah, he could take the pawn on f4, I don't care. I'll just checkmate him. That's what I did last time. So I go knight d7. And the second I go knight d7, I see Zura's eyebrows go up and down like, what is this? No way. This is not true. And the more I look at it, I'm like, what have I done? Now I got to claw my way back. And Stonewall Dutch is one of those openings where once you're down in the dumps, you ain't coming back, buddy. It's very, very hard. Because just there's so much like tension in the middle. If you lose the tension, then he just controls everything. So G takes f4. I go queen h4. I mean, I'm trying to do something, but I think even here the way to play is to slow play it. Just king h8, rook g8, try to go g5. But here I'm on skates for a little bit. I go queen h4. He just goes e3, and I have the most solid center in the world. Basically, he's playing the Stonewall Dutch. He's got everything I wanted, and I'm over here just without an f pawn. Stupidly, I might add. And okay, so we make some moves, and this is where I started thinking. And my round 3 game, I talked to my friends about it, and what really was in my head was I got like a winning position against him, and I didn't flip the switch to think, okay, let me try to draw this. Because I think if I had at some point realized, okay, if I'm just trying to draw this, I can just play simple chess. But instead, if you remember from the last round, I started kind of getting crazy and just not doing anything. So here, my goal focus was I need to just get some pieces out of the board. Remember, I'm very cramped. Let me simplify. If I can get to an endgame, maybe I have chances to hold. So I go here, I go rook d8, just get my pieces in, take, knight d7. I'm trying to trade off, and I come up with this really cool idea, b5. Now, b5 is not a good move, but it's a tricky move. Because now, I mean, he's kind of in cruise control right now. He's like, okay, I'm easily winning. Like, I can do anything. And then these pawns are just going to come like the Hun army. So take, and I go c5. This is what he missed. Because with c5, these 4 pawns now become honestly 2. Once he takes here, I'll take this guy. This pawn will be very weak, and even these pawns are kind of weak. They're not as strong because they lost their support. It's like I broke a pack of wolves into 2. And it's way easier to deal with 1/2 and 1/2 than the whole pack. So bishop h3, and I'm like, okay, even better. Let me just simplify. So this, he comes back. I take on b5, and actually here what's kind of cool is I actually have some winning chances. Like if someone played bishop f2, this pawn is actually kind of like going all the way, and he's got problems. And then f3 is soft too. But I mean, he's a strong player. I think he recuperated really well. Bishop d2, take on b5, rook f2. And once again, I'm in trading mode. I go bishop d7, d3. I think I should have gone bishop d7 because I really underestimated this idea of rook g2 here. And now I'm like, wow, these guys are really coming to get me. And these pawns are still dangerous. If you can go f4, f5 and move this bishop, I'm probably cooked. So here's where I thought bishop d7 is better because it just forces the trade, and I can always go d3. But I go bishop c5 check here. And the reason I didn't want to go bishop d7 here is there was a lot of ideas with e6. And if I take, I can't take back because it's made on g7. But I put together, if I go bishop d4, hitting a1, he moves his rook, and now I go bishop d7. Now e6 doesn't work because the bishop on d4 guards g7. So kind of a cool move order thing where obviously like I had all the right ideas. You just got to put it all together. And that's kind of what like high level chess is. When you have like different things you got to work out, it's like a puzzle. Then you find the right order, the right way, the right direction to put everything, and it all kind of works out. Obviously here I'm still kind of down a lot, but I mean I think he's starting to think here. I'm at least feeling better morally, or with better morale, not morally. I mean I did feel like a good person at this point, but that has nothing to do with it. Rook c7, take, and now this was really close to working. Bishop c3, but he has rook c1, and the real sad part is he can go rook d6. Because if he has to go here, if I can get some pawn, okay, actually just d2 wins. But if I can get isolated double pawns, that would be fantastic. But here I go rook c2, and another cool idea is a rook g2. I had all these rook take and here plans, and then this I could draw for sure. Like take, and then take. And then these pawns are fallen. It's only up a pawn and they're all weak. This would have been a good comeback. And I think against like a weaker player, I would have these chances to kind of come back. But Zurab is very strong, and he kind of saw through all of it. And then here, I mean, it's still like you got to calculate. And this, I think, was once he made this move, I think he was really in the driver's seat. He played bishop c3, and I missed this idea. I mean, I'm just trying to like be scrappy and find ways to make it complicated for him. But bishop c3, and now if I take, these pawns are just way too strong. He's gonna push, and it's all dark squares, so this would be just game over. I mean, obviously I don't take. I go rook f4, and I think there might have been a slight error in this core sheet, because after here I can go rook takes bishop, and maybe I did miss this. I was scared about these pawns, but this is actually like not the easiest in the world. This bishop is pretty anchored in, and I mean, it's not great for black, but this would have been holdable. But I'm also very low on time here. As you can see, like whenever I'm low on time, it's because I had a very tough position. But I think I play good and okay positions very well, because I'll play fast. Generally, I won't tank too much, and I'll just keep a good pace and keep good threats. So f7, and then this was just game over. So a really, I mean, I think it's a wake-up call game, because at this point now I'm 2 out of 4 instead of 2 out of 2. And now it's like, okay, if I lose another game, no norm, no nothing, no money, no anything. So now the pressure's on, and I felt actually kind of good after this game, because I was able to make it a game. Like, I was getting smashed, like absolutely smashed 20 moves earlier. Like, he's +4, he's got everything, he's caught up on time after being down a lot. Like, I was like, I could have resigned that position. He could probably have won like 3 or 4 moves if he played a little bit more accurately. But I mean, I got to move 48. I got like not maybe some winning chances, but more just like holding chances, just making it hard for him. And it feels good against like a good player in a bad position. If you can survive just to another level, you get some confidence out of it. And I wasn't happy about the loss, but I did feel like, okay, I can do this. Like, especially I just almost held with black again. I mean, the Stonewall Dutch did get cracked, which kind of got in my head a little bit, but all I had to do was win the next game, and I was back in it. So that was round 4, on to round 5. All right, so round 5, I'm playing Harry Law. Very important game for me. I really need to win this game to turn around. Funny thing real quick is last round, I played Zurab, who's from the country Georgia, and this round I'm playing Harry Law, who is also from Georgia, my home state. So we start out e4, c6. I've played him before. We've actually played some training matches, and I coached his brother for a bit. So I was expecting Sicilian, but I also saw he played Caracan, and I had a feeling he was going to go into that, because my Sicilian's pretty strong, especially my Rosalimo, and I knew he didn't really want that smoke. So we go Caracan, bishop f5. This line is pretty interesting. I think I really have some work to do with the Caracan. But I have this like cool line. I go bishop e3. And my idea is castle queenside, attack, push pawns, try to checkmate him. Just normal stuff. So he goes bishop d6, knight h5. This is all still theory. Castle, queen e2. I mean, at this point, I'm playing fast. I know exactly what I'm supposed to do. And knight d7, which is actually what I have in my file. And then castle queenside. Take, knight f6. And this is where I really started realizing this dude is playing for a draw. This dude is trying to trade off all the pieces, take away all the fun. And the sad part about this position is I kind of have to. And I know this is all theory too. This is all kind of the plan that I have in my chess-based database file. So take, bishop d3. I know this is still kind of what's in my file, rook takes, and I know white's supposed to be slightly better here. Plan's g4, g5. Actually, let me put the computer on. I think queen takes was actually the proper move. No, but actually rook takes is fine, and this is actually exactly what I have. And I was like, all right, I guess white's slightly better. I can go g4, g5. That's my plan. Problem is, it's pretty easy for him to trade off pieces, which is really sad. So queen g6, bishop d2, maybe not the best move. King b1. Actually, yeah, bishop d2 is fine. My idea is I want to stop queen e4. I really want to go h5, g5, but queen e4 is really annoying. He can trade off easily. He attacks my rook. So just bishop d2, simple chess. And I did want to go f4, but it just seemed like I was trying too hard to push these pawns. Like if I push this, like okay, cool. If I find some amazing way to break through, it looks great. But I've been here before, and I've seen sometimes they trade off, and all these pawns are falling, or they're weak, or I overpush, and in the end game, it's not really an advantage. It's more of a weakness. So I decided to play a little bit more controlled. I played rook g1. He played e5. I played h5. And this is when I decided, okay, it's time to go. Like I can't wait too long. If I give him a couple more moves, he's gonna trade off everything, and he's gonna get his dream scenario where he can probably draw it. Which really, like, it's like me and Shabalov would hate that. It's like, come on, play like a man. Let's actually attack and do some stuff. Queen e6, and I'm literally willing to give the a2 pawn. I saw this idea and I was like, okay, I go rook a3. Though I guess here, obviously I'm willing because it's winning, but I don't even care. I wanted to really make things happen. So take. Now there's a lot of cool lines here. I was thinking h6 at some point, but he can just go g6, and then just block everything up. Not so simple, and attack gets stuck. I was thinking bishop takes, but then this I wasn't really sure about. This looked pretty sketch, but I mean here actually c3 is just chilling. Maybe bishop takes was the way to go, because I was worried about this, but I thought he would just trade everything off. Oh yeah, e4 looks pretty nasty too. Yeah, so I mean, this starts. There's a level where it gets too sketch, and when I was younger, or maybe a year or two ago, I'd be like, all right, whatever, it's gonna work out. Like I'll be fine. We'll figure it out. But as I've gotten older, as I've played more, as I've really tried to like lose less and be more controlled, I've realized like there's a level of sketch where it's just not worth going to. You want to stay in control. So take, I go rook takes g5, which I think is at least practically kind of the best. And if he did take rook takes d4, I was ready for this. And if queen takes here, I thought c3, and I think actually this is good. But apparently after this, he probably still has e4 or something. Oh, rook f d8 is just GG. Which is kind of a hard idea to see, because you got to give up g7. Okay, wait. Oh, rook f8. Okay, it's not GG. The computer's stupid. I thought for a second it was GG, but I got some compensation here. And this is kind of what I had in my head. But he goes like this, and I go queen f3, and then he goes rook d5. I'm like, really, bro? Like, at least try to win and take on a2. Now, this I actually have these rook takes g7 ideas. Actually, okay, I'll get that back then in a sec. But the cool thing about this is I just win by slow playing it with like bishop takes c7. It says dark squares are weak, his king's weak. Eventually, he'll fall down. So I mean, I was hoping for that. So I guess he shouldn't have done it. I mean, bishop e5 if he really wanted to play, but I mean, I knew he was gonna do this too when I saw this variation. He went rook d5, traded, and then traded again, and I'm like, all right, man. You want to go to an endgame? Let's go to an endgame, because he's got this isolated pawn here. So I have these two. I have a 2-1-2, but my pawns are weak on this side, and a 3-on-3, but his pawns are weak on this side. And I thought the isolated pawn was worse than my kind of like two pawn islands on the king side. So endgame wise, I think I was like, all right, I can finesse this guy. I can find a way. Also, worst case, I guess I draw. Though a draw here would be pretty bad, because I've lost 2 in a row, and now I'm drawing down. It's gonna set a really bad tone if I draw this. So I really want to win this game. So bishop c3. Now if he goes d4, I was happy with this because I thought I had bishop g5. And if f6, I go f4. And now he's kind of cooked, because if I take here. His pawns are weaker, and I can win this endgame. I'm pretty confident in being able to win once I'm up with that much of an advantage. So he goes a6. I go c3. I want to blockade this isolated pawn. Make sure he can't trade it off, and slowly get my pieces over there, so I can kind of corral it. So bishop f6, I bring the king in, and here's kind of where he just like doesn't know what to do. So rook here, I go rook here. So if he takes this, my passed pawn are way faster. And not only is it faster, he can't even get a passed pawn because this pawn kind of stops his 2 over here. So I would have been very happy with this. The outside passed pawns are really strong. So rook e7, bishop d2 here, and then, okay, this is my plan. So I wanted to go bishop g5 here, but then I would say, oh, he has rook e4. You got to be kidding me. And I can't take because he takes with check, and then he takes my bishop. So now I have to kind of do a little finagling again. So I go back, I go f3, and now I go for the same idea. This, and I want to trade off. And already here is I think when I was started to think, okay, I can win this game. Because after this, a5, another very good slow move, because he doesn't really have any moves. He can't move his king. If he goes back, I just get a better version because his king is less involved. If he trades, now these pawns are weak. I can go ahead and win this. And he has no pawn moves over here, and he has no rook moves because I can take on f6. If he goes back, I take here, and this is going to be very strong too. So he goes rook c6, and I was like, all right, now it's time. I take, and I go king here. No rush. I don't have to go further on and try to get these. Let me just hold this. This pawn, and this is how you want to play against an isolated pawn. Take your time. Isolated pawns are always going to be isolated unless you do something. Because there's no pawns to the left or right. It's not going to get back up. So eventually you get it. You just pick the right time. So now I go king here. He goes here. Now I'm not going to shadow my pawn structure. My key to winning this is to get a pass pawn, the A pawn or the B pawn, and push those and go on to win. So b4, he goes check, and I go here. I wasn't quite ready for king c5. I thought rook d3, and it gets a little bit unclear. Maybe c4, but once again, take your time. He's going to make the mistake. So this here, and now rook f4. And actually, after here, this is when I freeze him. He's got no moves. If he pushes here, I can take, or I can take on f6. If the rook goes off, I'm going to come and take this pawn. The king obviously can't do anything. King h6 makes no progress. So king h6, and now it's time to go for the kind of the mad dash. So king c5 here, this, take, and then I had b5, and I saw this idea, and it's the best move. But I was like, okay, let me just play controlled, because if I do go b5, there was some chance I thought in my head, which I should have calculated better, was he can push. He's got 2 pass pawns instead of 1. This pawn, maybe he can try to, I don't know, give up these 2 and try to get a pass pawn and draw. I think with better calculation, with, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't really scared to lose here, but maybe I was playing too controlled at some point. But I was all right. I go take, take. And here is another, this is actually where I think I made a mistake. Because this is, once again, this is a free play position. I'm going to just push this pawn. Eventually, I'm going to win. And I should have just gone rook f5. The reason I didn't go rook f5, and rook f5 is great because it just controls everything. He's got nothing, and I have all the time in the world. I thought maybe at some point he can get some stupid, like, 2 pawns versus, rook and 2 pawns versus rook, but he can hold it because I'm in some stalemate trap, but that's just, or, yeah, some stalemate trap or something, but that's not really a concern. I would just take here and then just go ahead and cash that pawn in. He can't win this pawn without letting me queen this. But I go rook to b5, and the reason I went here is because I just thought it was an easy win. But what I overlooked was after this, he can check me from the side. I thought he had to go here, and I would push, and then I can always threaten this, so it's an easy win. But once he checks me from the side, it's a little bit unclear. And he just did this, and he played rook e7, which I thought was, no, so he played g5, which I thought was really bad. Because now I just take, and go here. And the bigger problem is he can't stop me in a good way from queening the pawn. Like if here, I just go rook here. And now I can block this way. And if this, rook b8. And now my king, okay, so when you're trying to hold as black, you have to get my king as far away as possible. If my king gets under this pawn, it's over. So what he really wanted to do, and I'll show you guys in a sec, is force my king to queen this pawn. But if my rook can do it by itself, like this, now my king's way too close. So now let's say instead he went rook e7, and I went, I have to go rook c5 here. Because if rook b7, he's just going to check me for, I think, a long time. Or try to hit it from the back with this and this, and it's not so easy. Actually, let me show you. So let's say this. Let's say I push. He goes check, king here, and he can check me a lot, and he could get these connected pass pawns. And then my king has to go over here. Now I'm in trouble because it sends me 2 moves to get over here, and then it's gonna take even more moves to get back here. Now what I can do is go rook c5, and the reason why this is good is 1, it's a waiting move, so he has to trade off the pawn. And 2, I once again can shield, and my king is close. So push, he has to go here, and now I can go rook here. And fortunately, I'm just in time to catch this. So this, I can go rook takes. I think king takes, no, king takes still wins. And after this, my king will have enough time to catch this pawn, fortunately. So that would have been the more trying way to go, and I think we were starting to get a little bit low on time. So, I mean, maybe I'd have a chance to slip up here. But the way you did it, he did it over here with just letting me push. I think this was, after this, there's nothing to really worry about. Because, I mean, look how ahead my king is. And it ended up ending like this, and then it's just like game over. And I think at some point, his brother came and watched, and I used to teach them. And I was like, yeah, come here and watch this. Let me show you this endgame real quick. So this game was good, and I think this is where... I mean, it felt good, but my positional chess, I think, always has been pretty solid, but I knew I can beat lower rateds in these endgames, and I think this was a good example of that. I think my endgame has come a long way. I definitely have to shout out Jiu-Jitsu. I think Jiu-Jitsu just teaches you a lot of defense and a lot of, like, long-term control, hooks, all that kind of stuff, and just patience, too. Wait for the right time. Don't rush the finish. Don't rush the submission attempt. Don't rush. Stay in control, and eventually your opponent will give you something. So that's what I kind of got from this game, and this was a really big one, because if a draw or a loss, once again, tournament's probably just over. I mean, I just wasted all the money, time, and everything, and I'm just fighting back to get my rating. So very important win, and now we're on to round 6. All right, so this is round 6. I'm playing international master Dimitar Mardov. He's this 11-year-old kid, like really, really small. And funny story is, like, earlier in the tournament, my friend was like, he's from Chicago, and so is this kid, and he's like, dude, this kid Dimitar Mardov is so good. He made like international master in under 300 games. Like, he's a legend. And I was like, yeah, I've seen him before. He's really good. And then I check the pairings, and I'm like, oh, I'm playing this kid. It's not what I need right now. It's okay. Also here with round 6, I need to make a run. I'm 3 out of 5. I really need some big results to make sure I stay in norm contention. If I drop off 1 game or 2 games and I start playing down, it's impossible. You have to keep playing higher rated players, and the only way to do that is to keep winning or scoring. So I'm black against this prodigy, and I need to score. And guess what he plays? Same thing as everyone else. He plays Stonewall Dutch. And look at the engine. It's like F5 inaccuracy. Knight F6 was best. So as you can tell, computer hates Stonewall Dutch, or just the Dutch in general. And once again, I need a win or draw. So I'm a little bit nervous here, but I'm like, all right, come on, let's do it. I said I'm going to play Stonewall Dutch. I didn't really prepare anything else. I mean, honestly, I didn't even prepare this for the tournament. But this is what I've been playing, and it's what I know the best right now. So I wasn't going to deviate from it. So I stuck to my guns. He plays the same move order to make sure that I can't go bishop b4 check. So we get a pure Stonewall. We get this position. He goes b3 again. I'm like, man, every single guy has played the same thing. They've definitely been looking at my games from the previous rounds and deciding, like, what should I do? Which I don't like. I don't like being that predictable. It's dangerous, because if they can find a hole, if they can find like a really good setup or something I don't know, I don't want to be in deep waters so early in a game. Okay, so I just keep going with what I know. And okay, so knight c3 is not the most trying variation, because I mean, you can't really go knight e5. The knight doesn't really do anything from c3. So already here I'm like, okay, kind of like my position. And I decided to go knight d7 to control the e5 square, because with the bishop blocked, you can't go knight e5. And this is where I decide to play. Okay, so this is some computer stupid stuff where it goes back and forth. We didn't do this in the game, and he goes e3 here. And this is where I'm like, okay, I know I can attack the king side. I know that's what I always do. Let me try to change it up, because I think based off this structure, based off him not being able to push and kind of just the lack of ambition in the center, I can play on the queen side because I have time. And once again, this is why you stick to the same opening, because you know when you can do something and when you can't, and when it is better to do something and when it's not a good idea. So here I go b6, bishop b7, and now a5. And I don't know, Magnus has some games with the Stonewall Dutch, and he likes a5 a lot. I think he played against Anand, maybe Caruana. I'm not sure about the Caruana game, but I'm pretty sure he played against Anand, and he had a very nice game. And I've seen him play on the queen side, so I do have some knowledge of how to do it. So he goes knight f4, and I think here is when he starts playing, getting a little bit, or just taking more time in the clock. And I've been walking around and having a good time so far. And this is all like very like normal plans. And I come up with this cool idea, a4. The idea is if he doesn't take, I'm going to take and penetrate the a file and go rook a2 and stuff. And if he doesn't take, or if he does take, I had this cool idea of take, rook takes, which maybe he shouldn't play rook takes, but I guess it's the only move. So rook takes and b5, and just open up the queen side, because this is where all my pieces are. His pieces are kind of more in the center, and I think this a2 pawn is weak. So if he takes, once again I take, and I get a2, and there's a lot of pressure over there. And if he goes here, I just go rook takes. I was thinking about pawn takes a little bit, but I thought, like, with me playing on this side, I want to open it up, and that means I want to get my rook out, not block my rook. So rook takes a4, queen b1, and okay, once again, I didn't do this. This was just the computer going back and forth or something, and I go c5 here, trying to blow up the center. I think it is the best move. I think once again, on your strong side, or the side you're focusing on in general, open it up so your pieces can kind of flex more. So c5, knight takes, and he goes knight e5. I mean, this position starts getting really, really crazy. I go bishop d5, and I did think I was better here, and I think with the computer's analysis, you can see that I think I'm doing at least pretty well. Once again, that didn't happen, and he went bishop d4 here. And what I should have done here was slow play it with queen b7. And it's cool to see, because I thought I was doing a good job of slow playing this tournament, but apparently I could do even better, because there's been a couple spots where if I just took a little bit more time, that's how I keep my advantage, and then you find kind of the right time to do what I try to do. So b4, I mean, this is not a bad move. It's the second best move, And I'm just trying to open this stuff up. Push, rook here, get my knights in, knight d3, or at some point bishop takes a2 or b3, take, bishop takes. And he plays knight c4, which I thought was a really interesting move. There's a lot of cool ideas here. What I ended up going with was knight c3. Knight d3, I want to go like knight takes f2, obviously, because he can't go rook takes, but he can go rook f1. But if he went like here, I would just take on f2, and remember this knight on c4 is hanging. But knight d3, it looks cool, but after rook f1, it's like, okay, now everyone's hanging again, and I'm not really sure what's going on. So I go with bishop knight c3, and I missed this idea. So I thought, okay, if I go take, he'd have to go take on g7, and I'd go bishop d3, and I mean, I wasn't super stoked about this, but I was like, I'll be up in exchange. I think I mean, I should be better, and I don't think my king is that weak. Another idea after this was also like b3, I was thinking, and just try to open it up. Probably not as good of an idea. Or even just rook takes a2. Or sorry, bishop takes a2. And after like after we trade everything, maybe I can try to play this position. Oh yeah, b3 first, then take, and then this pass pawn is really dangerous. My king is definitely very sus, but pass pawns are worth a lot. So those are my ideas. But he went with bishop takes b4, and okay, at first I was like, okay, wait, I think I'm winning, because I just go here and I think I hold everything. But then I missed knight e5, and it looks like we're winning exchange, and I think everything else I should be. I mean, even if he does this, this is not an easy game, because I mean he's got the outside pawn, but I'm up in exchange, and I was like, all right, I can press this, I should be fine. But knight e5 is a killer, because I can't really stop knight c6. There's no cool way, so I was like, all right, so I take here. I mean, it looks like rook b4 and stuff should work, but he really is holding everything. None of this kind of works. Maybe this would have been a better way to go, but at some point, and here I am starting to get low on time, so I'm like, all right, I just got to go. So this is where I'm like, all right, man, if you can hold, so far you've been holding, you got opposite color bishops, but this is definitely scary, because he's got the outside pass pawn, and my light squares are weak. And when you get two weaknesses, that's when it can be trouble. So here I have to be very, very careful, and I know this kid is really strong, very good. So I have to be careful here. And a big part of how to defend here is trade the queens off. Because if the queens are on the board, there's always checkmating ideas. Or like, he can get active and I can be in really trouble. But if I can trade the queens, I should be able to hold this endgame because it's opposite color bishops. So if he goes here and I go queen b4, once again, he has to stay protecting the rook. If he goes anywhere else, I can take the rook. So he goes queen a1, and here I go bishop e7 with the idea of bishop f6. And once again, I can really try to force that queen trade. So rook b1, I kind of get what I wanted with the queens off. Well, now here he has no choice. So this, I take, and now I start bringing the king in. And this is still tough, but like, I think I did a really, really good job of defending. So rook, I mean, that's okay, but rook a8, I mean, I can't let this pawn get too far down. If it gets here, now it's really a problem. It's going to be very hard to defend. If I can trade rooks here, though, easy money after that. If I trade rooks, this should be very holdable. So bishop e3, yeah, rook. I guess rook check king f6 is the better way to go. Yeah, I guess I missed that. I think maybe I go king d6, because if he gets the e6 pawn, I'm cooked for sure. Okay, but I do this here, and I hold the d6 pawn. And another thing you want to do is definitely trade off. The more pawns you get off the board, the easier it is. One thing I did notice was this h pawn is the wrong color. So part of me did want to keep this on, because even if he has this, I can trade off everything, and it's a draw. But I just have to play kind of aggressively, like aggressive defense, and then g4. So this take. Now the cool part about this is all my pawns are in light squares, but that means all his pawns are in dark squares. And with my goal of just trading off, I don't really care if he wins all these three if I can win these three. So this is my idea here. Bishop e1, and if I can get this rook here, it's it. I win. I draw. And if he tries to be too ambitious, I can actually win. So let's say here, check, here, and rook here. And this is where I'm like, all right, I got it. Because after this, if he wants to try to play like super aggressive and do this, he has losing chances. Like I take here, and now I have my own pass pawn that he has to worry about. And anytime you can take someone from they can only win to they can also lose, that is a big moral victory. Because psychologically, no one wants to think about losing after they've only been thinking about winning. And that's when they start playing very tight or very anxious or very scared. So after rook d2, it's really just lights out. So this, he has to go back. Once again, if he tries to go here, like he risks losing, because I can get these, and then I can always sack for this, and I have pass pawns here. So after this, king d3, I chase him back, and then this is a very easy draw. Because if the king ever moves away from this pawn, I just go bishop here and try to get this. And then I can just always sack the bishop for one of the pawns. Remember, obstacle at bishop endgames are always the easiest to draw. So this one was a very big moral victory. Obviously, I wanted to win, and I really felt like I had winning chances out of the opening with my attack, my assault on the queen side. But to admit defeat, to hold a pawn down endgame with a sketchy position against, once again, a very strong player, I was really leaving this game with a lot of confidence. So very excited about this game. I think at this point I have 3.5 out of 6, and this is when the run really starts. This is when I really like turn it on, because after this I can't really lose or draw no more. I got to get some wins, otherwise it's going to be very, very hard to norm. All right, so next we're going to go on to round 7. All right, so this is my game against international master Jason Liang. Right now I'm 3.5 out of 7, and I've been saying this every round, but this is kind of a must-win. Because I think if I lose, I'll probably play down. I mean, I guess I could draw and still have a chance. 6 out of 9, I think, would get a norm. But a win here would be really, really big. And my favorite part about this game is I really didn't have to play. My opening prep really came through. I'll show you guys in a sec. So we start with the Caro-Kann. And I already won one game against the Caro-Kann. I think I did look up this guy, and I knew he was playing Caro, so I looked over some stuff before the game. And he plays knight f6. Okay, so this line, this is all still theory. I think the idea is you have double pawns, but you kind of have an easy way to play. So generally, endgames are weak for black because he has double pawns, but it's very easy for him to equalize and get mobile pieces. So as white, I just kind of play kind of controlled, but I do castle queenside, so I am kind of still trying to play some fun stuff. And h5 is, I think, the very popular line here. Real quick, I think he was thinking about this too. Can you go bishop f4? But I think I've looked at this idea, and I'm pretty sure it's good for white. Though I didn't see that this is the reputation. Here, knight e2, and I probably would have castled queenside here, but you want to go queen d2 first, and then you can castle queenside. Now I know, so I don't have to worry about that next time. So he goes h5, and I go castle queenside, bishop e6, still prep, and I go knight e2. And the idea that white wants to do in a lot of variations is c4 and knight c3. And that's kind of how white justifies being better in this position. If you try to do the normal stuff and attack over here, h5 is a really good move to stop that. So he goes knight d7, and now I don't have to worry about this pawn, because if he ever takes here, I just have d3, and this queen, eventually the bishop gets trapped, and just king d2, rook a1. It looks kind of sketch, but it is +3. If that was like +1, then I probably wouldn't do it, but +3 is pretty much almost like a guaranteed win. So I'm willing to put my king on d2. So c4, still prep, a3, b5, and actually here, this is where I was really excited, because this line, I didn't look at this right before the round, but the Tuesday before the tournament, I actually prepped a lot of Caro-Kann, and I have this line in my database. Let me show you guys. So if I go to Caro, knight c3, and then click on knight f6, we come here, and this exact position is in my database. It just, because I was like, queen a5 is kind of aggressive, like I don't want to have to deal with it. So what do I do? And I literally have it all the way to b5, c5. I know bishop check first, which looks kind of funny, but this is actually the best move. And I specifically remember thinking during the game, because during the prep, I was like, what happens if he goes bishop b3 and wins the exchange? And that's what I remember from my prep, and I was like, okay, I have to get to this position, because that's what I remember. And I remember looking at it, asking this question, and knowing the computer was like, white's just winning here, because you're hitting the 2 rooks, you're hitting the knight, you're hitting the rook. If he takes here, you can even just take, and I think you're winning, because you're still guaranteed at least the exchange back, and you have these connected pass pawns. And the endgame is really easy. So now we go to the game, and I have the same exact position. I go c5, he goes bishop c7. I go bishop h7 check. I was thinking maybe he can go king f8. I was probably going to do the same thing, but I was thinking maybe he does that, because I didn't look at that as deep, but I think it's still good for white. So if he goes king h8, I go bishop e4, he goes b4, I take, he goes queen takes, and I remember like, yes, this is exactly where I wanted to be. Because I remember, what happens if he wins the exchange? Oh wait, I'm winning. So I take on c6, he goes rook b8, and this is kind of where the prep stops. This is what, almost move 20, move 19, and here I'm already +4. So this is why you study openings, and this is why you have to be very careful when you're going into some of these kind of stuff. So queen c3 is still pretty easy to play. I can force the queen trade, the queen can't go anywhere. His only kind of counterplay is my king is kind of weak. So I get all these pass pawns, but I'm not playing on the king side. I'm playing over here where my king is. So I have to be a little bit careful. And this is when I kind of start losing my way a little bit. So I take trade. And here I wanted to go knight c3. I was like, okay, if he takes here, I think I just take, and then knight d5 is really strong. I always get my material back. But then I was like, maybe he goes like rook b8, and then I have to go like rook d2, and then there's like rook b3 and some sack on c3 at some point. And I honestly should have just gone for it. But I was like, okay, I see bishop f3. Let me just trade off. I mean, if I get these double pawns, it really doesn't matter, because these two pawns are my money makers. And now it's easy to survive the attack. The problem is he doesn't trade, because I mean he played really well after he got out prepped kind of, and he made it pretty difficult for me, and I had to make some tough decisions. So bishop f5, and I see this idea, bishop d5. I guess the problem, so I should have gone knight c3, but what I thought here was he's gonna do something like this, and then like here and try to take. I mean, I don't know. I was really paranoid about this idea, and I was like, how do I defend here? Because he can just take here and then rook here is mate. But I guess I can just go rook e2. And even here I was like, wait, isn't he just like up a piece? But these pass pawns are just g4. Wait, but bishop takes? Oh, that's nasty. I didn't see that. That's what I missed in my calculation. Because I did see like, okay, a rook e2 survives, but then he wins the rook. But then I missed g4, which is actually really sick. Okay, so back to the game. I played bishop d5, and the problem with bishop d5, I mean, it's not losing, but I did see after this, after my plan was b3, king b2, and now I'm just cruising. I hold the fort, the attack's over, and now I can start pushing my pawns. But he has rook takes b3, which actually made me a little bit nervous here. Because here, like, okay, I'm up in exchange, and I got these pawns, but he's got hella activity, and my king is definitely a little sus. And I find the only move, and I think everything else really does lose. Because king d2, he's just going to take me back home, and now I'm cooked. My king is in big trouble. But when you're defending, defend with tempo, and that's what I really liked about this tournament. I played very solid, and my defense really carried me. So knight g3, he goes bishop g6. Obviously check doesn't work, I just move over, and what knight g3 does is it also gives my king space to run, or to block and stuff. Because before, if my king came to e2, I mean I couldn't come to e2, but now if I come to e2, I always have like bishop d2. Okay, that's knight g3, king here, and I would have bishop d2 to block things, which is why this is very clutch. So here, king d2, he goes h4. This is another example of why I defend with tempo, and I actually, once again, I guess find the only move. Knight f1 I was thinking about, and I was like, that does defend, but this looks way better. Because now if he takes, I take with check, his king moves, and I would take an a7. So technically, it's 2 pieces for a rook, but I'm getting my piece back, and once again, I have my money makers. So these pawns will carry me, and if he sacks a piece, now I'm just up in exchange and a pass pawn, which is going to be a lot more easier to defend, and he can't checkmate me anymore, because there's a lot more, I guess, open space for my king to run. So if he goes a5, I go knight f1, bishop e4, and this is another, I think, pretty good move I played, just king e2. Because if he takes on g2, I'm just going to go knight d2. Once again, I'm making it as easy as possible for my king to survive and for me to get my pieces out. Funny thought I was really thinking about this game was this rook on h1 is like Clay Thompson. If this rook comes back into the game, it's over. We're winning. These guys got to do their best during the regular season to kind of hold down the record, and then once Clay comes back, dude, it's over. And you'll see, like, Clay comes back with thunder. So bishop d3 check, king d1, and this is when I start feeling like, alright, I got this. Once his pieces start moving back, I can start moving my pieces forward, and then trade off too. This gets me a lot of space. Now here, I wanted to go rook b1 and get Clay in, but if I go rook b1, he takes, and now my king's a little bit farther away. Obviously, I think still winning, but I was like, I'm not going to rush it. I'm going to make sure Clay comes back in perfect form. So I go rook b3. Now when he takes, or if he takes, my king comes forward, and Clay's going to come back with a better move. I mean, I guess we lost Steph in the process, but we're doing it for Clay, man. This is Clay's game. So rook b3, trade, king b3, and even here, I don't rush it. Because if his knight comes here, maybe he can get some like blockade or something. So I first get my king to c4. That way, I control the square. I can always push this pawn, and Clay is gonna come back with authority. So king f8, h3, knight d7, and then rook b1. The move that Clay comes back from the game, he resigns. How poetic is that? It's like this whole game, I was waiting to get the rook on h1 into the game, and then the move the rook on h1 comes in, he resigns. Like that is beauty in its finest right there. So this was a very, very nice game, I think. Very good prep. I lost my way just a couple moves, but then the defense was very controlled, very like accurate, and I kind of did. I think the easiest way to defend is white here. So pretty happy with this game, and now I'm 4.5 out of 7, and that's a oh sorry, I was 3.5 out of 6, and now I'm 4.5 out of 7, and that's a pretty baller score. Back to back, drew an IM, beat an IM, and now I'm going to the last day, and the big thought in my head is if I win the next game, I clinch, and I'll talk more about that in round 8. Alright, so this is my round 8 game. This is against international master Eylon Nakar, who's very, very strong, like 24, 40, 24, 30, 24, 50, somewhere in there. And it's strong I am. Like, I've seen him in a lot of tournaments. He's really good. Kind of funny story for this game is I actually played this guy the last night in Blitz, and I was pretty sauced. I consider the Blitz tournament as my chess vacation. So before every round, I think we drank like a beer and a half. And I wanted to lose. My whole goal was to make sure I don't play Daniel Naroditsky. Didn't want to go there and get posterized. So I was like, all right, I'm ready to lose. And then I think I won the first round, I won the second round. I kept winning, and then I drew a GM, Brandon Jacobson, in a better position. Like, I was the one pressing. And then I played this guy. And I think he got a good position at the opening. And then I find this tactic. And I'm just shocked. I'm like, what? I'm supposed to lose it. Why am I finding these good moves? And I go to C3, and he's and then I tap my friend on the shoulder. He's like, yo, check this out. And then Zura's 2 boards down, and he starts looking. He's like, oh my god. And then Rook C3, and I kind of just like win pretty easily. So now I'm playing this guy the next day, and I was thinking like we might laugh when we see each other, but no, he was all business. And I was like, oh man, this guy's coming with heat. And at the same time, remember, I'm 4.5 out of 7, and I'm talking to my friends, and if I win this game, I clinch the norm. If I draw, I'm probably going to still have to score the last round. I'm going to have white. I was black this game. But if I win, I clinch. And this is running through my head, and I got this guy definitely trying to beat me. So I'm like, all right, here we go. And to top it all off, I get a French. This whole tournament, everyone's been playing D4. D4. And I knew this guy was going to play French because he only plays D4. That's all I saw in the database before when I was prepping. And I know he plays the French. So I was like, oh man, this guy's going to know the French well, and I'm definitely going to get the French. I've been talking all this shit about the French, and I was like, yo, when I get the French, I'm going to do something good. So now we get a French. And he goes Tarrasch, and I think this is what I expected. I knew he played Tarrasch. I think it took a couple games to get there, but I saw he played Tarrasch. So I go Bishop E7 from Rosich line. Honestly, one of my kind of favorite lines. It really revived the French for me, because the Tarrasch was really kicking my butt. And then I found this variation. Honestly, I found it by playing the French against a Grandmaster. And the Grandmaster played the French and played this, and I've never seen it before. And I was like, dude, this stuff is really good. I need to check it out. And that's how I learned the Mardov line. So losing is very important too, because if I didn't lose that game, and I just got wiped out, if I didn't lose that game, I wouldn't know this variation. And now I'm playing it in round 8 to try to clinch a norm. So he goes Bishop D3. I mean, this is all theory. This is all like really normal. And what's crazy is like at this point, he's used like a whole hour on the clock. It's an hour and 40 minutes to start the game, and he's got 40 minutes on the clock, and I think I might even have like an hour 41 minutes. Because I mean, I haven't played chess yet. These are all moves like I've just memorized. So I'm not even playing chess at this point, and I've already got an hour advantage. This is when I start thinking, all right, dude, I can win this game. Like, I'm already getting spotted all this time, and I kind of know this line, and I don't think he knows this line, or he's never seen it before, because he was really like taking a lot of time. I mean, he played all theory, and then take on D5, and this is another thing. The Tuesday before the tournament, I was prepping all night, and I prepped the French really hard. Like, I was really confident in the French. And I remember going over this variation and thinking, what if he takes on D5? Because if I go queen takes D5 here, I think it's very drawish. Like, I'm going to get this pawn back. It's not that bad. Actually, yeah, I guess it's not even drawish. I'm just worse here. So queen takes D5 was normally what I would play because I don't want to trade off or get this isolated pawn. But I remember the prep, and I remember it said e takes D5, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. I get the isolated pawn, but I have very active pieces. And I think it's very easy for me to get the bishop there. I can go knight takes C5, take this bishop, and I don't have to deal with the French bishop, the bishop on C8, being a bad bishop, because I can always go bishop G4. So this is still my prep, and I mean, he's still burning a lot of clock, and he goes B3. So B3 is taking the first kind of strange move. I'm not saying it's like a bad move or anything, it's just kind of weird, because you don't see like the bishop on B2. I think his idea was he wanted to play against this isolated pawn. And if he controls the d4 square, eventually he's going to be able to liquidate enough material. And real quick, when you're playing against the isolated pawn, if you have the isolated pawn, and I read a book on this, and I'm kind of glad I did, because I actually I guess know the structure of the plans pretty well, and I have it in a lot of my openings on both sides of it. Normally I like to play against it, but I know if you have the isolated pawn, you want to keep pieces and try to attack. The idea is you have two open files, so you have an easier time to attack. And if you're playing against the isolated pawn, you want to trade off pieces and go to an endgame. Because right now, I can attack, but the more pieces that come off, the more this isolated pawn is going to turn into a liability. It's going to be a problem because there's no pawns that can protect it. That means eventually, if he just piles up on his pieces, all of his pieces on the pawn, there's a good chance he can win it. So those are the kind of two plans that I keep in my head. So I go knight takes pawn, and bishop takes is the better move, and I guess it makes sense because at some point I really wanted this bishop on this diagonal. But I wanted to go knight takes, so now I always have the option to take the bishop pair, take his bishop, and get rid of his light square bishop, which is generally the best piece for white against the French. So in principle, knight takes I think makes sense, but if I had to do it again, I'll probably go bishop takes, and then I think I can always go knight b4, and that's the other kind I do with bishop takes. You can always go knight b4, get this, and then also put pressure on c2, and the bishop is in a more ideal position. Okay, so bishop b2, bishop g4. Once again, I'm playing pretty fast. I know he's burning clock, and I don't want to waste time trying to figure out the perfect kind of moves here, because I want to feel the pressure, and I think there's a lot of good moves for black here. So you just pick a couple and you just play naturally. So this, rook c8, I'm just trying to put pressure. And here I kind of find this cool idea, and I'm like, okay, he can't really make any moves here. Because if this knight moves, I can go knight e4. If this knight moves, I mean, he just wasted time, and where does it move to? All these pieces are kind of maxed out. So I can force the action, or I can just slowly try to strangle him and just put pressure and wait for the right moment. And I think a4 is a good move for that. Now I did miss this idea of knight h5. So I saw this later on, and I kind of wish I saw it earlier, because the knight coming to f4 I think is very strong. And here it's a lot harder for him to deal with it than I did later, which you'll see. So I go a4, bishop d4, and I just I take, which looking back I think it was a little bit premature. And my reason behind taking is he had to play a takes, and at some point if he can go c takes and my queen's on c7, which I wanted it to be, the c file opens and he gets this 2-on-1 on the outside. So I'm already thinking if this comes to an endgame, the 2-on-1 on the outside is a lot better than the 2-on-1 on the inside. Because the closer this pawn is to kind of the center, the easier it is for my pieces to stop it. But if he gets a 2-on-1 on the outside, if the pawn gets down here, my pieces have to move all the way. They have to shift all the way to this side, and then he can start attacking here better. Maybe it was a little bit, I guess, too analytical here. I never think that far ahead. And I guess if I keep the pawn here, he's always got to think about me taking, which just adds more mental, I guess, taxation to him, if that's a word or a term. So I take, kind of releases some pressure, and I just go rook e8. So rook e8 here, and queen a5, knight f3, and then now I find this idea of knight h5. Here, okay, another idea I was really thinking about was doubling on the c file. I was thinking rook e7, rook c7, and I was thinking about knight f4 at some, I think here, knight e4. Maybe it's actually here, knight e4. There's a lot of tactics. For example, like if he takes everything. I saw bishop f5, and I guess this doesn't even work here, and then bishop a3, but I guess he just goes rook here. I was thinking I could try to get some tactics there, or maybe it was after queen a5 first. Yeah, I think that was it. So here, so queen a5, and then here I was thinking about knight to e4, and I was also thinking about taking the bishop. But another thing I was really keeping in the back of my mind is don't trade off too much. I don't want to make it simple for him, because now he's really starting to get low on time. I think maybe 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and the more things he has to calculate, the more chances he has to slip up. And a very good point that my friend made after the game was, with the current tournament position, I could have thought about offering a draw here. He's in a tough position, he has very little time, and if I offer the draw, he kind of has to take it. Not saying no is I think too ambitious and a strategic mistake, and I'm just trying to norm, right? So if I draw this, then I go into the last round only needing half a point, and that's probably not the hardest to do, but there is a chance that if I lose the last round, all this work was for nothing. Now, in my mind, I didn't even think once about offering a draw. But looking back, that is a decision that I think I could make. I need to at least consider in this position. But no, I wasn't thinking about a draw. I was like, I'm gonna get this guy. So knight h5, bishop b5, and I think this is when he started really making some good moves. Like here, my pieces start moving back. So c3 threatens b4, so now I have to move my queen back. And then here, and I have to move my knight back. So he started to reclaim some momentum. And I think here, if I offered a draw, now he would probably decline, because the position's kind of taking a turn for the opposite. Now I still have threats here. It's not like he's just completely winning. Like if I get my knight to f4, I think it's a problem for him. I have a lot of sacrifices over here. I mean, his pieces still aren't amazing, and these pawns are kind of weak. So if I can trade off, and one idea I was really thinking about was trying to get a knight d6, take this bishop. At some point I was like, okay, this is his best piece. How do I get rid of this piece? But there really was no good way to do it. So he goes g3, stopping knight f4, and here I just go h6, stopping knight g5. Once again, I'm just trying to make good moves and keep the pressure, and the time is ticking. Once you're in time pressure, it's very hard to get out. It is 30-second increment, but to play like 6 moves fast in a row in a complex position is really tough. Like every move, you're going to take at least 30 seconds to double check things. So if I just make complicated moves, his time is going to continue going low until more pieces come off. So just things to think about in these kind of positions. So rook e3, knight f8. I'm making sure that now there's no mate here, and once again, I do want to get a knight d6 and get rid of this bishop. So he doubles. I go rook a8. And honestly, this is kind of probably not the best idea. I was just like, okay, how do I get counterplay? How do I get my pieces better without actually changing anything? And I saw an open file in rook a2, and I thought that was a good place to kind of put my rook and just keep pressure over here. And at some point, I do really want to go queen c8, attack this one. Actually, I'll show you guys in a sec. So bishop d3, and I wanted to make queen. Okay, so queen. Actually, I did go queen c8. Bishop c8, computer move, but that's just trading off. That's not gonna happen. So queen c8, and I really wanted him to go h5, h4, and I was trying with all my might to go bishop here, and knight f4, and I wanted to make this work. And I guess here it would have worked. And the idea is he can't take because I have queen check, and that's just me, right? And this, I think, with time pressure, probably here he's got like a minute, 2 minutes, 30 seconds, something very low, very hard for him to deal with. I guess rook takes d3 is even better, but that was what I was trying to do, and he did a really good job of stopping it. So he went queen e2 first. Once again, I was like, please, can I do it? But it doesn't work. And here I go rook a2, which I think is not a good move, but it's the right move for the position, if that makes sense. Because he's really low on time. I'm adding stuff for him to calculate. And according to the table, I didn't really see bishop b1. And then this, I think, was the really the good practical move, rook b2. If I just admitted defeat and came back, which I was kind of close to doing, now he's gonna make some easy moves, and now it's his turn to have a good time. And this is where international masters, grandmasters, they'll win these worst games by taking the momentum, moving forward, and then once I go rook a8, I've seen it before, it's over. He's just gonna make easy moves, not have to worry, and then generally they don't blunder. Every once in a while you get blessed and they make a big blunder, but here I don't think he was going to. But I go rook b2, which is really dangerous because this rook can easily get trapped. And in my head, I was like, I can always sacrifice this rook for this bishop and then try to finish him off over here. So that was my insurance policy for rook b2. So he goes queen d1, trying to corral it, and that's, I think, when I see after rook c7, if he ever goes queen c1, I can take on b4, which actually is not very good, and I'll show you guys why a little bit later, but this would actually be losing later on. But here I can do it, and it's good. So here I go bishop g4, just putting more pressure and waiting for the right moment. He goes rook e8, which queen d7, and he kind of has to go back, which I think was a bad move. Now the idea here is he can go queen c1, take, and then bishop c2. And now if I go rook b5, he has bishop a4, and he wins back the exchange. So that would actually have won the rook in this position. Now very hard to see in time pressure, because once you see queen c1 and rook takes b4, you're like, no, he wins upon my position collapses. I mean, I think it's not that simple. I think here, like this, I can probably take on d4 or something, and it's complicated. But in time pressure, he's not going to mess with those complex positions, unless he's like a wild man. So he goes rook e3, kind of comes back, and now I think I start taking back the momentum. I go knight e6, he goes bishop e5, which is a blunder. But it's really hard in this position, because the best move is queen c1, which looks like the opposite, because it looks very dangerous, and he's got maybe definitely like 30 seconds. He almost flagged like at least 5 times. You'd have 1 second left, 3 seconds left, 5 seconds left, and then make a move. So bishop e5 looks like a good move because he's trading off, but it's dangerous with his pin and everything, and I think he was just forced into it. He's like 1 second left, have to move. So I take, rook takes, and now I take on c3. Now there's a lot of like fun stuff I could do here. I was looking at maybe d4 or like knight f4, but this is just the easy move. And now the rook's just really coming in, and he's got a lot of threats to deal with. So he goes bishop f5, and I think his strategy is pretty simple here. Try to trade off, make it simple, just get rid of all the tactics, and then either try to hold an endgame or try to reverse positions and get a good endgame. But the problem is, I have these knights are really tricky. So knight f6, he goes knight e5. I think his last mate, I don't even think so try, but rook takes f6, g takes, and one guy after the game was really trying to be like, yo, I think that worked. That was the move. He needed to do that then. You were busted. And his idea was knight e4, which I actually missed, but I definitely would have seen rook takes f3 here, because he's hitting this and he's hitting this. But if I take here, it protects this f6 pawn, and if he takes, I can just take the knight. And this is a pretty easy game, easy position to convert. My king is not that weak because he doesn't have that many pieces, and I'm just out of a piece. He doesn't even have a pawn for it. So knight f6, knight d4, queen c8. Once again, I'm just making like pretty good moves, like not really trying to over push, overextend. I'm really making sure I'm protecting everything. I'm like, these sacks don't work. Really just focusing on, I make sure I don't fall for some blunder. So queen c8, knight f3, I take on b4, just once again, simple moves. All my pieces are kind of in the vicinity of each other. He can't really win anything because everyone can protect everyone at a moment's notice. And with rook takes b4, my other idea was to stop queen g4 check. So I get this pawn, and I also take away his rook takes f6, pawn takes queen check idea, which I was a little bit like, okay, maybe that's something. And now I don't even have to deal with that. He goes knight e3, rook e4, and now my idea is d4. Let's say he just makes some random move like this. I can go d4, and wherever he goes, let's say like here, which I don't think I can do, but I just go take, and rook c1. That was my whole idea with rook e4. Once again, simple chess, nothing complicated. So he goes queen f3, and this is when I know it's over. This is when I was like, all right, we did it. We clinched the norm. I go knight d4, queen d1, and it's just a tactic. It's hard, low on time. Now I've taken back the momentum. Now I'm really controlling the game. And then I think knight d4, and he got a little bit frustrated. Queen d1. You can definitely see on his face. He was like, I think it's over. So I take, and here he resigns. So yeah, I was pretty happy after this game. I didn't know 100% that it clinched, but I knew it clinched. 5.5 out of 9 I've known with before, and this tournament I definitely played better. I played stronger people, and I'm guaranteed playing up the last round with 5.5 out of 8, which I think is a pretty baller score. So I was pretty happy after this game. A lot of congratulations, a lot of people just happy for you, which is always great. And I guess I'll get into the whole norming after for the last round. So last round, round 9, but very happy about round 8. Alright, so I'm playing round 9 against Grandmaster Nicolas Checa, who's a very strong Grandmaster, very solid, cool guy. I've talked to him a couple times. Actually, we go way back. He's from New York, I'm from New York, and we actually drew years before. I think he's like 2100, and he was like this tall. Now he's like this tall, and he's Grandmaster now. So I was like, okay, maybe he'll give me the draw. And at this point, I've already clinched the norm. I'm like, it's time to cruise. It's time to have a good time. If I win, I do gain more rating. I do probably win more money, but I'm not doing this for the money. I'm doing this to make Grandmaster, and I've already got my norm, so I was like, all right, it's okay to play soft here. And I won in the morning. That was the real, all right, this is a true battle, a true game. So here I'm just cruise control. So my idea here is to go, I went d4 and offer to draw. So I wanted to go take, take, and then offer the draw. So here I would take and offer the draw. But I was like, okay, if he declines, then I have to play an exchange French. And as a French player, I can't play an exchange French. Exchange French is terrible. And then I'm going to be playing for a draw the rest of the game. And if he wanted, he could probably just win, because I don't know how to play for a draw. So I go knight d2, and I'm like, all right, I guess it's time to play, because I go d4, offer the draw, he goes d5, and just keep playing. So I go knight d2, and I just go into my normal stuff. So he goes c5, This is L theory, bishop c4, queen e2. Now the reason you go queen e2 is you want to go knight b3 and get this pawn, but here you can go queen check, and you just have to come back. So queen e2 first, and now if he goes queen check, like this, I can just block, because now the queen is protecting the bishop. So knight c6, all three, bishop g5, bishop e7. I love the question mark, exclamation mark. Queen b4, I think I just go back and then castle queenside. So castle, knight takes. The way I remember which knight to take is I want to move towards the king, my #1 strategy in chess, my only strategy. So I go knight takes, because if I go this way, it's going the wrong way. So knight takes. I'm going to put the engine on. What I did realize is none of you guys can see the engine, because my picture's over it, but I can see the engine. Probably next video I'll put it down over here. I'll just stick to it here. So take, rook takes, queen c7. I actually I'm not sure what the best moves here in this position are. This is I know this is good, and I know I want to go rook d1 and knight e5. I'm not really sure about the move order. I guess what I did was the right thing. The idea here is it really controls position. He can't go here because I can take and then take on e7 like this, and this is just terrible. I got the 2 bishops for the rook, not just 2 pieces. And if he goes rook d8, which I was thinking maybe he could do, I was like, maybe I can go queen e5 because he can't take because it's back rank. I guess the move is just take, and then knight e5, which is pretty similar to the game. It's just really hard for him to get his pieces out. So knight e5, so rook d1, he goes a6, trying to go b5, bishop b7. I go knight e5, which I guess is still all book, b5. And I know in my head bishop d3 is the move. I really wanted to go bishop d3, and I have this one idea if here I can take on f7, take and queen takes. I don't know, bishop takes, queen takes, because these are very active. Rook f8. I was thinking, okay, take, and then rook d7, and that's just toast. So you can't do that. But I knew in my head, and the theory and the prep that I had, bishop d3 was the move. And at this point, I was like, all right, every time I've stuck to the plan of what I was going to do, it's worked out well. So let me just go bishop d3. And funny enough, right after bishop d3, he goes g6, and he offers a draw. And I'm like, put it there, man. I am ready to draw. Thank you so much. And I think that's a really good way to cap the tournament. It's like when I stick to the plan, good things happen. When I have a plan, good things happen. If I don't have a plan, like against Hakobyan, I lost my way. You saw bad things happen. Against Zurab, I was too confident in my plan. I didn't even check my plan, and bad things happened. So you gotta stick to the plan. You gotta stick to the script, and you gotta play control. And that was really the theme from this tournament. I always try to give myself like a grade after the tournament on what I think my performance was, and for this one I definitely say an A. Now if I'm Grandmaster and I do this, it would not be an A, but the fact that this is kind of like my big first step up in kind of a while, again like 3 points, got a norm, and won $600, and it was all because of the discipline and the control I had during the game. Now I could definitely have some more discipline and control outside of the game, before the rounds, after the rounds, but it really goes to show if you stick to your plan, if you know what you're doing, if you, I guess, prep openings, you work hard, you actually put in work, good things will happen. So pretty happy about this tournament. I thank you to everyone who said congratulations, and it really motivates me, makes me happy, and makes me want to just work really hard. And I think that's kind of what this tournament, why I did so well. I just had a really good mindset. I was I really love chess right now. Big shout out to the English Barber and the chess club there, because it just really makes me love chess more. And when you go in with a happy mindset, and you go in just trying to enjoy chess, trying to, I guess, stick to the plan, do the right things, good things happen. And now we just head off for the holidays. Probably play January. I know February is tournament in Texas. I'm very tempted to go to Vegas, but I'm leaning towards no. I think I'm just going to spend time with my family, because once again, good mindset, good things happen. Spend time with your family over the holidays, appreciate the time you have with them, and then there'll always be more tournaments. And when there are, I'll do well then. So that's it for this tournament. Thank you guys. I will see you guys later. Hope you guys were entertained.